Good afternoon and welcome to Success Paradigms. My name is Emilio Garcia and with me is Mr. Andrew Barker.
Buenas tardes.
And today we have the pleasure of having Mr. Steve Hevesi from Brazil, Mexico, US. He's been all over the place, I think. I don't know if it's Mexico or I just added something to your resume in there.
You did. Who
Well,
knows?
that
You
was,
never know.
Maybe it's next step. But anyway, hey Andrew, what's going on this week? You and I've been talking. We do have that mixer, right?
Yeah, so thank you, Emilio. I always forget and you always remind me at the end, but better at the beginning. And I don't know if Steve can make it, but I hope he can. Yeah, so the Latin America Professionals year-end networker for the first time in the month of December, as everyone has requested, is this Thursday. Details are on the Facebook page, the website. You can shoot us an email. But it'll be, I think is it 6 to 10? And if you get there, people always show up earlier. I'll get there around 6. We'll have a reserved spot in the restaurant. I know some new people, first timers have confirmed, so it'll probably be a small group, but to celebrate Christmas, year end, whatever one's.
Face masks and social distancing. So
Yes, so bring your masks, but we'll have our own section of the restaurant, so that gives us some additional, security. So yeah, that'll be Thursday, this 2 days from now, and it's going to be a good time.
perfect. I'll see you guys there then.
Yeah.
We're counting on you, Steve. Hopefully.
Okay.
All right, so let's get started. Steve, you and I've met probably about a year ago, I think, or a little bit. Well, no, probably a little bit more. This whole COVID thing kind of threw my timing off. I don't know if it's been.
Not only yours.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been a year since COVID started in Asia, not in the US, but it's getting there. But anyway, we'll get into that in a bit. So Steve, let's start with the beginning. Let's start from the beginning. We both, Andrew and I, know a little bit about your story, but help us tell people, because you don't have much of an accent, but when you go into it, we find out that you're a little bit further down south than what I'm from. So tell us, where were you born, raised, school years, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. I was born in Peru. Just a little bit of background, because I don't look Peruvian. So my father was Hungarian, my mother was German. They left Europe after the war. They met in Argentina, got married in Argentina. My sister was born in Argentina. They moved to Peru. My dad got a job in Peru, and he was in the corporate world. Years old, and then my dad got transferred to Brazil. I went to Brazil and went to an American school there. Then got educated. Came to the States for my. It's a long story, but I studied architecture. At the end of the day, I studied marketing management and communications.
Is it, sorry to interrupt, is it on my end or is it for everyone that's getting kind of choppy?
Oh, it's for everyone.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on in DFW today. But it's for everyone.
Yeah,
So
just weather outside is frightening. Hey, we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting a good Christmas note there. So Steve, you were starting to tell us about, I think, your undergrad degree. So that was in undergrad or your master's?
No, I went, yeah. So I started working in Brazil, and okay, sorry. Let's back up. I went to the States. I got a degree in marketing management and advertising. And then I went back to Brazil. And most of my career was in, let's say, marketing, then sales, general management of fast-moving consumer goods. So I worked for Johnson Wax for many years. And then in between let's say I was there for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. Then I went to get my MBA. So I went to France for my MBA. I went to INSEAD, which is a 1-year program. And then I went back to Brazil, continued at Johnson Wax. And yeah, then my career progressed and worked for Nabisco and other companies. I don't know if that answered what you were looking for, Emilio.
A little bit. I forgot for a second the Peruvian part. Uh, and you cut off, but you weren't in Peru for long, were you?
I was there until I was 10.
10. Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I got my Spanish. So that's Spanish was my first language.
Got it. And Lima or?
In Lima, yes.
Lima.
Miraflores.
I know that area. That's a nice area.
I haven't been back for many years, but I want to go back because I hear that you can eat really well in Peru these days.
Yeah, probably not too expensive nowadays, but that's true in most of Latin America, by the way. Yeah, Brazil was one of my favorites. Where in Brazil did you live? Was it Rio, Sao Paulo?
I lived in Rio. Except, let's say, when I worked for Nike, then my family stayed in Rio and I went to Sao Paulo, but pretty much I was there from Monday to Friday. So I was kind of commuting. I did that for about 2.5 years.
Yeah, and that's not a bad commute. What's the flight's like an hour or less, right?
Yeah, it's about an hour. It's about 45 minutes, 1 hour. The only thing is that, let's say, the Nike was not in Sao Paulo. It was in Alphaville, which is, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 kilometers outside of Sao Paulo. So
not on the way to the airport, the other way, right?
The other way, yeah, but let's say I flew into the shuttle. Let's say the shuttle flight goes to the local airport, which is Congonhas, because you have the big airport, which is further away.
That's the one that's close to the Autódromo, right? Interlagos.
Yes, closer to the Autódromo. Yes, closer to Interlagos.
I know my geography, not really, as you can see. Race
car. Is that F1, Emilio, you're referring to?
Yeah, that's F1, and I did attend the Sao Paulo, the Brazilian Grand Prix down there.
No NASCAR, Emilio?
No, I don't. It's different, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but you saw it. You were down. You said you were you went to Brazil for the race, Emilio?
I did. At one point, the company I was working for, we were expanding rapidly throughout Latin America, and it was going really well. And we were about to close a major deal with Pão de Açúcar, which is one of the largest retailers in Brazil. It was the largest retailers back then. And the guy that we were dealing with was a big fan of Formula One. So my boss got tickets, and at the end someone canceled, and he's like, "Hey, you're a big fan, you want to come?" I'm like, "Heck yeah."
Yeah, that's
I'm there before you. I'll wait for you.
Emilio, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because when I worked for Johnson Wax, one of the product lines in Brazil was we had a line of car products for car waxes and things like that. And we sponsored Pedro Paulo Diniz. That was Abílio Diniz was the owner of Pão de Açúcar.
Okay.
And we sponsored his son initially in Formula Ford and then some other formulas. So we also had, like, we used to take dealers and stuff to watch Formula One. In the beginning, in the early years, it was in Rio, and then I moved to Sao Paulo.
Right, and now it's in danger of losing the Brazil spot. So anyway, but I mean, we can stay talking about Formula One for hours, dude. I'm good.
We can.
Now, Emilio, for our Texas audience, what races do you go to down in Austin?
Austin has a Formula One. It didn't have it this year because of COVID, but they built a special track for Formula One, like probably 7 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I remember. I was living in Mexico at the time, but it was big news internationally, of course. Right?
Yeah, and right now Mexico's big news because Sergio Perez, Checo won one race, and
Yeah, last week, right? Or was it earlier this week?
this weekend his engine blew. The week before,
Yeah, so it was last week. Yeah, I saw that. I was happy. That was great news. I was happy. To
yeah,
hear.
it was a great race.
Say it again, Emilio. I apologize, everyone.
No, that's fine. He got hit on the first lap, so after lap one, he was in the last position, and he came through and won that race. And apparently, they've been talking for months that he might have a deal with Red Bull because he was
That'd be awesome.
ousted from his current team because
Yeah,
the owners bought Aston Martin, and Aston Martin being really big in Europe, they
Right.
wanted an European pilot.
Yeah, Checo Perez spoke here in Fort Worth earlier this year, and Carlos Carpizo and I went to the event. He actually speaks, he comes across really well. He's humble.
I didn't know about that event.
He's excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Pardon me, did I say Emilio? We said Carlos and I went to see Checo speak.
Yeah, no, I heard you. I said thank you for inviting.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So they bought, since we're all car guys and a lot of the listeners and viewers are, so they bought Aston Martin Racing, or they bought the entire
Racing Point, they bought the whole thing.
They bought the whole thing. Wow.
Well,
Okay.
Racing Point is owned by Lance Stroll. He's a billionaire out of Canada, and his son is also racing in there. So they bought the team, and then they bought Aston Martin, curiously enough, in partnership with the team director for Mercedes, and buying Aston Martin. And if you think about it commercially, marketing wise, they hired Sebastian Vettel, who's a 4-time world champion. He's still in Formula One. For me, he's lost his prime. He's always been a good driver, but lately he hasn't done much. But being a 4-time world champion, German, for a car manufacturer whose biggest market is Europe, do you want a Mexican or do you want a 4-time German? Marketing wise, and that's why they bought the factory, to sell cars, not necessarily to win races. Although winning races makes them sell cars as well.
Yeah, they used to say here in the United States, win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Yeah. All right, let's track back because we could go on this tangent for.
Yeah, so Steve, Steve got us started on it. He shouldn't have brought up the racetracks.
Hey, he mentioned it. No, I did.
I like Formula. We used to have a lot of good Brazilian drivers, not anymore.
Yeah.
Did Emilio restarted? He's trying to get us off racing.
I know. I'm trying to go back to talking about him. He tries.
Okay, Emilio, you take it, Emilio.
We'll do another show and we'll talk about cars and racing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So let's get back in the roll of things. So after you moved from Peru back to Brazil, then you came up, did your undergraduate, came back up, did a master's, went back down, and it's just a back and forth with you apparently. Where did that change? Because I think the last time we spoke, this was kind of the definite move. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, there weren't that many changes. I just went for my MBA and that was a long time ago. And then I went back to Brazil, and pretty much all my career was in Brazil. So I was in the corporate world for many years. And I left the corporate world about 10, 11 years ago. So that was still in Brazil, and I left the corporate world, and I went into, I did a couple of things. First, I started doing consulting. I joined forces with somebody that I knew for a while. That was a designer, a pretty famous and good designer in Brazil. And we started working using the design thinking framework and working in innovation projects, mainly shopper marketing for big CPG companies, you know, Nestle's and Johnson and Johnson and companies like that. And did that for a number of years. You know, I stayed as a partner, but it was, we have a saying in Brazil that we're too many chiefs, not enough Indians.
Have the saying in Mexico, yeah.
So it didn't
Yes.
quite, financially, it wasn't quite what I would have liked it to be. And I started getting some requests for consulting, mainly in strategy. And in that, so I started doing that. And then there was a US company that was trying to go into Brazil, and they sold, it was called Dr. Miracles. They sold ethnic hair products.
Okay.
And, you know, ethnic hair products, Brazil is a big market. And
Would
they
Dr.
wanted to go down.
Miracles do any miracles for me? Because I could use.
I was going to say Andrew might be a client.
I was thinking about that. I was looking at him and I was thinking about
Hey, I'm open to miracles.
but it was like, it's a huge market there. So it started like just like, you know, consulting to find the market opportunity and what have you. And then I ended up opening a subsidiary for them and, you know, hiring salespeople and running the business. And I was, let's say, doing that pretty much until I decided to come to the States. So I was doing that and consulting. And then through the consulting, I went into coaching. So I started coaching maybe about 6 years ago. And then when I decided to move to the US, and the reason we moved was family at the end of the day, was I have two daughters that came here. They went to school here and they decided that they weren't going to go back. So we didn't have any family left in Brazil. So we decided to move. We had the green card, so we decided to move. And so when I got here, I said, you know, what I really like, what I'm most passionate about is coaching. And so that's where my focus has been since I got here. So I do some advisory work and some consulting, but my real focus is on coaching.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about the coaching. What, because, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but nowadays there's 50,000 different coaches. And you talk to some people and they're like, I'm a coach. And what? Uh, and it can be some things that it's like, holy crap, okay. What I'm trying to say is there's some people that throw the word coaching out too loosely. I know you're not one of them because I know your resume and you just shared it with us, but can you be a little bit more specific on type of coaching? What type of people would be a good candidate for you? Because obviously there's different coaching for different people. So give us a little bit more idea on what that looks like.
Sure. I'll start with what I do, and I'll talk a little bit about coaching. And I totally agree with you. I think, let's say, what you were saying is kind of the bad news. You know, a lot of people call themselves coaches. And the good news, and what I do is executive coaching and business coaching.
Okay.
What's the difference? Executive coaching is people that are in the corporate world and they want to succeed in their corporate careers. So I will help them, whether it's, you know, improving their executive presence or communication skills or leading with stress. There are tons of things. Okay. One thing that is important that a lot of people don't realize is coaching is not mentorship. Okay. So as a coach, what I do with the clients is I understand what they're looking for, what their challenges are, and I will ask a lot of questions. I will kind of partner with them. But at the end of the day, it's the client that comes up with the solutions. It's not me.
Okay.
So I will help them do that. Okay. The other part that I do is business coaching, and that is more with middle market, somebody that owns a business that is growing, is undergrowing, going maybe pains of growth, somebody that's controlled everything and suddenly he has to let go. He has to delegate a little bit more because you can't control everything. You have to start putting processes into the company and things like that. So that's the other area that I coach in.
Okay. So on the executive coach, one thing that I've always wondered, and I did meet one person long time ago that mentioned that within the executive coaching, they would include some part of personal and business life balance coaching,
Mhm,
because I
mhm.
think that's one of the things that I've seen a lot of people that say they're coaches and they don't include any of that. And that's when you get the executive that's very successful but has 5 divorces, stuff like that. And again, this show is about success in all different levels and all different types. But to me, being successful at a career, but then having 3, 4, 5 different marriages or mistress or whatever, it doesn't balance out. And
Mhm.
what I heard at one point, and I think you're nodding, is you do include part of that as part of the coaching, right?
Absolutely. I do something, and I call it the whole person approach. I mean, it's not my term. Other people use it. It's like we're the same person, whether we're in a personal life or work. And so if we have an issue at work, we're going to take it home. And if we have an issue at home, we're probably going to take it to work. So yes, I deal with both things. So I may be coaching an executive, and in a session, he'll want to talk about some issue he's having at home or she's having at home, and that is totally normal, totally acceptable. Usually, the way that and this, it depends from client to client, but let's say the ideal model for me is in the beginning of the coaching engagement, understand what the person is looking for, and then I will do like a very long interview with that person, long and deep. So really trying to understand um, their values, where they come from, things like that, a little bit more about their upbringing, beliefs, things like that. I like to include some sort of assessment to understand their strengths, areas of development, things like that, and the 360. So that will give me and the client a lot of information to really understand what are the areas that the person has to work on. And then from there, we'll do X number of coaching sessions.
Okay. So curious, have you ever had a time where both you and the client, after some coaching, turn around and say, okay, you gotta pursue a different career or different profession or something? Because clearly when you start analyzing, you're like, yeah, you shouldn't be here, you should be over here. uh, and that's a very, very difficult transition for a lot of people, and that's one of the points where we definitely need a coach. And
Mhm.
a lot of people, the problem is they don't realize it.
Yep. And you touched in something that is crucial. Most of the people, and I'm not going to say everybody, but I would say most of the people, they kind of go into the corporate world and it's like they just got into a train, and it's going from, okay, one position, the other position, what do I do next? And they really don't have time to think. And before they know it, 25 years of their life have gone by,
So
and they
true.
are in this, rat race or whatever you want to see it and relate to it. And one thing that I like to do is, and it's one exercise that I do with a lot of clients, is have them reflect on, okay, imagine that you're now 65 years old and you've had a really
Not hard for
successful,
anybody, but
sorry?
not hard for Andrew. He's almost there.
Imagine that, let's say you're 65 or so, whatever age it may be. I mean, they can come with the age, and you've been really successful in your life. You've accomplished everything that you wanted. What does that look like? So you're having a conversation, let's say, with your grandchild, and you're telling them, you know, how proud you are of everything you've achieved in your life and things that you've given back. And what does that look like? And that is a tough exercise for people. And many times when they reflect on that, they start understanding that there's a lot of things that they're currently not doing. And if they want to achieve that, they have to change some things. So yes, that is a big part of coaching.
Very cool. Now let's talk about, we've been touching on this with everyone lately, obviously, just because we're living through it, but how has COVID affected or changed your business, your approach? Because in some instances, I can imagine it's been difficult, but also in a lot of instances, it probably increased your opportunities, because there's more people now that need to get coached through something that no one's ever been through.
Yes, probably. Let's say things were going well until March, and then when the whole COVID thing, it took a hit. So let's say March, April weren't very good. And from May on, it was like a recovery. So I think a lot of people went into coaching, people that probably hadn't been coached before. Many issues stress related, dealing with the whole pandemic situation, working from home and things like that. So in that respect, it was positive from my end, let's say, as a, you know, in terms of that, in terms of a business. And the other thing is that before, you had a reasonable split between in-person coaching and virtual coaching. So especially the higher the executive, it was like they wanted the person to be with them in the room coaching. And obviously with COVID, that was not something you can do. So it changed to virtual. And I think one of the positive things is that people realize that it works pretty well with a Zoom call.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you can still see it, it's not 100% the same thing, but you can still see the person, you can see their expressions, you can see if they're thinking, you know, it's almost there.
Yeah. No, and I think it also makes it more practical a lot of times, because now you can book more appointments if you don't have to move around. I know it's happened for me in my line of business as well. And it's funny how you mentioned, yeah, it's not good but for the business, it was good, because it's the same thing. It's weird, but for me, every time there's layoffs, it's not good for them, but I do a lot of rollovers in 401k management and stuff like that. So for my side of the business, it's okay, it's good. And yes, I concur with you. I also had a lot of times where, depending on the level of the person, it was an in-face or a video conference was good enough. So tell us a little bit more of where you're going from, because we're still in COVID. People say it's about to end. Not that trust. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see it. Let's say and this is my personal opinion, I could be totally off. I see it improving, you know, after the summer, you know, sometime middle of next year in the States. That doesn't mean in other places. I think the more developed countries are probably going to be better off because they'll have more access to the vaccines, which is unfortunate, but is a reality. And so probably here things I think will back to normal, probably not, but very close to normal in the second half of next year. That is my belief, and I could be off.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I've heard from a lot of people. I had a meeting this morning and one of my providers, one of the asset managers, they're not going back into in-person meetings until late April, if that's their current situation. And I think it's also because, yes, there's word of a vaccine, but I don't know about you guys. Me personally, I'm gonna wait a little bit. There was I had a dinner last night and it got a little bit heated. Some of them were like, "You're kidding me? As soon as it comes out, I'm getting that thing." And I'm like, "Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I'll wait."
yeah, yeah, and I can understand. I can understand both sides.
I think,
Uh,
I mean, really, people need to lean on their doctors because your doctor knows your medical history, right? I mean, people need to get off of like taking medical advice from the media, and you have a doctor. Talk to your doctor. If you don't have a doctor, get one. Like, if I need a coach, I'm going to go to Steve. I'm not going to rely on the media to coach me.
Oh, the media. I thought you said the
People have
media.
this disconnect between. Quite frankly, I don't get it. Talk to your doctor, people. No.
Yeah.
yep, you're right.
Yeah, it's more of the being healthy. I think it's our first defense. Um, I've talked to a bunch of people, and they're like, the best you can do is be healthy, eat healthy, take care of yourself. Then yes, chances are that if you do get it, it's not really gonna affect.
Yeah, there's
We
there
got,
there it, that is true. There's
we
a
just
lot of
went
truth
through
to
it.
that, and there's data to support that. Because on the side of that same coin, but the United States, you can't say these things because people are so emotionally sensitive about everything. Is if you're obese, you're at higher risk. If you have diabetes, you're at higher risk. So in plain English, we call that not being healthy. So whichever side of the coin you want to look at, the data is there for that. Um, and as you said, Emilio, very well, it's just you put it better than I'm putting it. But just as a society, we're just in denial or behind on looking at our health as individuals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because you see them get the vaccine and then rush into the fast food corridor next door. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and the other one that one that you didn't mention, but I think is related to that is stress, and people are stressed out today.
Oh yeah.
So usually when you're stressed out, your immune system is, the immunological system kind of goes down, and getting something like that is not good for you. And the other thing is, I still think we know so little about the damn thing. We've learned a lot over the past 8 months or whatever, but there's still a lot of unknowns. I know people that had it and very mild symptoms, and then 3 months down the road started getting headaches, and they never had headaches before. And they've done tests, this, and they can't figure out where the headache's coming from. I'm not saying it's from COVID. Could be, I don't know.
And again, it could be to your earlier point, the stress of the endless worry. Now you're worrying about, I have a headache. Is it from COVID or is it just a headache? I mean, these downward vicious cycles are maddening.
Now, Steve, did any of those people get married in the process of those 3 months? That might be the source of the headaches.
Sorry.
Just kidding. My wife is going to see that. And anyway, if I'm not,
Did any of those people get married in the course of those months?
if you don't see me Thursday at the happy hour, it's because my wife watched the show.
All right, dude. We'll pray for you.
Anyway, so Steve, going forward, do you see your business going back to mostly in person or staying mostly virtual, or it's one of those, as we say in Mexico?
I see it staying mostly virtual. I think there will be some in person for sure, but I see it staying virtual. And the other reason is that in some cases, the client is not here in Dallas or in Plano. For example, I had a client that was in Michigan. So it's more expensive, they'll pay for the trips and things like that, but it gets more expensive because, you lose a day, meetings and then you fly back.
Yeah,
And
that's one thing
so
that exists indeed.
I think we've learned how to live in this virtual reality, and it does get tiring, but there are some advantages to it.
yeah, it does expand our market, definitely.
It does. It does. I don't think that's going away.
Yeah, no, I think that's here to stay. Um, Definitely. I actually closed my office. I mean, I still have a little office, but I closed it down in February. So, woohoo, great timing for me. I terminated the lease in February, so nice.
Good
Uh,
for you.
Lucky. Not gonna say I knew what I was doing. It was just dumb luck. And if I have any luck, it's dumb one. Anyway,
That's
uh,
most of us.
what's that?
That's most of us. I mean, right? That's what makes it luck.
Yeah,
Nice.
definitely.
It's nice to get lucky.
So what are you expanding your business? What's coming next for your business? And by the way, Steve, forgive me, but you have it's not your name, Coach. It's there's a business name, right? Where
The
can
company has step forward coaching.
there you go. I knew there was something. Sorry, that's my bad. Step Forward Coaching. And can people find you through social media, website?
Yeah. That's the website is stepforwardcoaching.org, O-R-G.
Okay.
There's, they can find it in LinkedIn also, or, through my name, or through the website. I also have a Facebook page.
And if they can't, they can always ask us. We'll have it.
Yeah,
They
and
can always
Steve,
ask.
Steve, you also have a monthly newsletter, email newsletter.
I do.
Sign up,
I do.
people, listeners, viewers, you can sign up for Steve's once a month newsletter. I like it because it's a very positive tone. It's sort of strikes, in my opinion, your newsletter sort of strikes a balance between positivity and practicality, which is nice. Is more than ever, I think.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, what I try to do, it's not, I don't sell anything with the newsletter. I don't try to push anything. I just try to offer some value to people. And I limit it usually to 2 talks, whether it's a TED talk or some other talk, and 1 article. And my focus is usually strategy, innovation, something to do with creativity, um, let's say different thinking. And, people, leadership is another big one. And, hopefully people, it won't take long. So usually it'll take an hour of your time at most, and you can split that up. So hopefully it'll add some value.
And not to leave you out, Emilio, you also have a email newsletter. I think is it bi-weekly?
Honestly, it varies. Sometimes we have 2 a
Okay.
week. Sometimes it's 1 a week. But yeah,
Okay.
we do have, and we have a new one now that I'm using a little bit more on the how money works side. A little bit more upbeat, a little bit more on the fun side, using a little bit of cartoons and whatnot, because finance is always like, sorry. Hey, it is what it is. But
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, you gave me that book last year sometime, and it was good.
yeah, it's coming out.
Exactly.
It's coming out in Spanish next.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think it was. I think it was scheduled for next week to have it in Spanish. But
Yeah.
Very good.
Speaking of Spanish, just one more thing for our viewers and listeners. Steve, so you offer service to clients in English, Spanish, Portuguese?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
That's very cool.
So one other thing that I think, I didn't mention it before, but for those coaching skeptics, there's several certifications. It's not something that is, let's say, totally has, a way of being or whatever, but there is what you call the International Coaching Federation. And to become a coach there, just so people understand what that entails, is you'll have to go through to some sort of coaching school. In the case, the one I went to, took about 9 months. So it's not something that you do overnight. After that happens, you will get tested by a coach, and you'll have to coach somebody, and they will listen in, and depending on how you do, either it's a go or no go. There's no, if you don't go, you can try again. And then you take a written test, and then for you to get your initial certification, you need 100 hours of coaching.
Wow, that's
And not 100
extensive.
hours, 100 hours of practical experience. If you consider that most coaching sessions, or not most, but many vary from a half an hour to 45 minutes, it's a lot of coaching just to
Yeah,
get your, sorry?
this is more time and energy than many MBA programs today.
Yeah, so you do need that practical experience, and then that's what, people use terms. So that's what people call an ACC, which is Associate Certified Coach. And then once you reach 500 hours of coaching, you become a PCC, which is a Professional Certified Coach.
Yeah.
So I have completed my 500. I coached before I had my certification, and that doesn't count. But I've completed my 500 hours, so I should, let's say, get my PCC by January.
Yeah. Anyone that doesn't,
I'm
Congratulations.
looking forward to.
yeah, congrats. It's impressive. But yeah, anyone that doesn't consider coaching a real thing, it's like one of my mentors used to say, they got their wood wet. Because, I mean, everyone, just think about anyone that progresses and does well, sports team, artists, singers, whatever it is, they all have coaches. Then what makes us think that in business we can just pick up and go? Yeah, we went to school, but what you learn in school is little to do with
Yeah,
reality.
it's the fundamentals, right?
And you got to keep fresh. I mean, the world keeps changing. Your situation keeps changing. God, this year we all learned the world keeps changing. So you need to adopt. And if you want to adapt, you need someone to coach you through it. Most definitely. But anyway.
Yeah, and you don't know what you don't know, and you don't see what you don't see. So that's why it's helpful. And sometimes I find that, many more senior leaders, one of their problems is they really don't have anyone to talk to in their office, because there's stuff that they can't tell them.
Right.
So many times I will act like a sounding board, and they just want to hear themselves out. And sometimes I'll just kind of repeat what they said, and it says, did I really say that? And they'll reflect on that.
That is not what I meant. Oh, hold on. Yes. Very cool. Well, any last words, Steve, before we leave? We know where we can find you, and we'll tag you both on Facebook and on LinkedIn and all over, and we'll get you the copy of this so that you can spread it out. But any last words? Anything you want to?
No, just thank you for having me with you guys. Congratulations on the initiative, which I think is fantastic. And yeah, and if something that many people just want to understand a little bit, what is coaching? I will talk to them for free. I mean, no charges. If somebody wants to reach out, and they can do that through my website. So if anyone's interested in learning a little bit more about what it's all about and how it can help them, just please reach out.
Very cool.
Fantastic.
Right,
Yeah.
Andrew, any last words?
No, just this was great, fascinating. Just talking about everything from F1 to coaching.
Yeah, we went on a tangent there for a minute.
No, it's good. The tangents add a little bit of of spice and flavor. So I just say great to Steve. Great to hear your story, and hopefully we'll see you before. But if not, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's.
Yeah.
Thank you. If I don't see you on
Sure.
Thursday. And yes, and then if you want to have another one just to talk about Formula One, that should be.
Sounds good.
We'll need a
We should do a
moderator
car
on that
episode.
one and a timer, because we can go for a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I can go for
But thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
Muito
Gracias.
obrigado.
This is Success Paradigms with Emilio Garcia and Mr. Andrew Barker. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you here next week.
Bye-bye.